Welcome to Above and Below, the podcast of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. My name is Sonya Bohmann, and I'm the executive director. Joining me today is my co-host, Zulq Malik, and our friend, Greg Sizemore. Zulq, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zulq Malik. I'm actually one of the principals here at Smart Build Construction. But before I started a construction technology company, I spent the last 30 years in the industry, various capacities. I worked my way up through the field, not as a tradesman. Sorry, I'm not that gifted, but I worked my ranks up from the project management side up to the point of owning my own construction company for a number of years. But I'm super excited today to have Mr. Sizemore join us because I thought I had stories. Greg's got better ones. They're bad, and he's got great sayings. So I can't wait to see where this goes today, Sonya. I don't know if it's going to be me cutting. You're going to cut me out today. You're going to go. I'm going to probe him.
Great. All right, Greg, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, more time than you've got on this podcast, but
I was going to say, not that you need introduction.
Over 47 years in the construction industry. Started out on the long end of a shovel. Ended up working in the C-suite of an organization, stayed with them for 30 years, and then had a 10-year career with another organization. And now I work for one of the largest trade associations in America in Washington, D.C. And I like to tell people I've been in the business since Burger King was a prince. And I've also could tell you this, if you would have told me in 1978 that one day I'd be walking the halls in Washington, D.C., doing the grip and grin with Mrs. Umpty Squat and Mr. Diddley-Poo about construction, I'd have told you it's crazy. But here I am, and that's what I've done for the last 10 years, and I've had a blast doing it, and it's just bringing back that respect to the workforce that's building everything in the world.
Amazing. So, Greg, this episode will actually air in January, so that means things have changed just a little bit more for you even, right?
Yeah, 100%. As I said, 47 years, it's time for me to put the spurs on the barn wall and say I've kind of rode my last horse. And for those of you who are listening for the first time, call Sonya, send her an email and say, what the heck does it mean? But at the end of the day, it's time for me to do a little something. I've got an incredible wife. I'm blessed with a great family, and they've chased me all over the planet for the last 40 years plus. And it's time for me to give back to them. And you're just planning a retirement. I'll never step away. I've told Sonya and Zulq, if you've ever got an opportunity, I'm not shy and bashful when it comes to microphones, so crowds don't make me nervous. And this topic, the mission of CIASP and what is accomplished in the last, just few years, is something to look back and say, we're doing the right things in the industry completely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, because you touched on a lot of things, and I did almost choke on my coffee when you said the spurt on the booth on the wall. But I want to know, you obviously construction, but how did the mental health piece fit into this conversation for you specifically?
Well, it's shock and awe. And I think the real revelation for me personally began to occur in 2016.
Okay.
We had some members of our national team there that had lost some loved ones to suicide. And there was a conversation started to percolate inside of our office about it. And then when the CDC released some data later on, I think it was 2018, and they began to compare the number of incidents that happened on job sites, because my background is health, safety, environment, and workforce development. When we started to see this data come out that said there were 1,008 fatalities that year, that means there's 1,008 human beings that went to work in the morning, did not go home that evening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they've concluded that with 5,242 deaths by suicide of those that call construction their career. And it's just light bulb went off for me personally, because we have a magazine called Construction Executive. And then I was aware of what CFMA was doing with Stuart and the team over there. And so, God looks after idiots and fools, and I happen to be both of them. And so the reality was we just kind of came to this place where we all began a much broader conversation about it. For me personally, I have a very close connections to suicide. I am a chaplain, and therefore I kind of work with people in this space even prior to that. But the intent, it really became an issue in 16. 18 is when, boom, just the lights came on for us as a trade association. And then CFMA with Stuart. And before you know it, we're breathing life into something, which is now CIASP. And if that's a legacy that I can leave any fingerprint on that, I'm ready to tap out. I mean, that is the proudest thing I can say of all the accomplishments that I've ever had in my career. I've run some of the biggest jobs in the country. I've literally had thousands of people in workforces, out there on projects, but this is something that is truly making a difference. And I was excited about it and building something where something didn't exist. There wasn't an infrastructure for it. And now all of a sudden, you guys are what you are. Like I say, y'all have the it factor.
Oh, that's amazing.
Awesome. So I'm gonna probe you a little bit here, Mr. Sizemore, because you epitomize the growth and the development in the industry. Yeah. You started on the end of a shovel, and now you're at a leadership role. And you also spent, I want to say 2 generations, but a couple generations of workforce, where when I first started, we didn't talk about our emotions, right? So people like you are helping catalyze that conversation of saying, hey, let's talk about what we're really feeling inside. So what are some of the trends that you've seen that, over the last, call it 30 years, that's allowing us to get to where we are today, and why people should be listening to this?
The trends are interesting because you begin to think about it. And again, we all get gifts, throughout our life, whether it be feedback or whether it be experiences. And I knew all along that the worker was the centerpiece of any project. And looking at that worker, we have a tendency from a safety and health standpoint, we've got plenty of rules. We've got all the procedures and processes, and we can wrap them in duct tape and bubble wrap if you want to, but people are still getting hurt in our industry. And it's not because they go to work intentionally wanting to injure themselves. What they do is we begin to think about all those external factors. And for me, the real adjustment was and this is even prior to CISP and working in this direction, is looking at what that person is expected to leave on the front seat of their pickup truck when they slide out of it and go on your job site. And I like to think of it in this way, and I'll just use myself as an example. If I got up in that morning and while I was putting my beanie weenies in my dinner bucket and all my sodas and whatever I was going to do, if I had a daughter that was in rehab, it's hard for me to leave that on the front seat of my pickup truck.
100%.
And so we began to think about that when I was in the project leadership side of the house, but now it's morphed to, we have a conversation about that. And I use one more example. My mother is a cancer survivor. In the 60s, when you had cancer, it was whispered, she got cancer, and now we use it as part of our vernacular, right? Mental health, suicide, issues around mental health are not just the extremes of bipolar and schizophrenia. Right. There's a degree of just anxiety that happens in projects today, Zulq, that we didn't have when you and I were in the field 10, 15, 20 years ago. One, we've got an aged workforce because we've done a poor job of getting the next gen in, but these 47, 50, 55-year-olds are still expected to perform as if they're in their 20s, and it's not possible. And so they can't. So as a result of that, addictions occur. Coping mechanism starts to go into place. And until the industry began to really look at that, and I know we still got a long way to go in that arena, but until the industry continues to look at it, and that's why I love above and below, as I like to say, it's under the hard hat, who's wearing it? Yep. That's what really matters. Personally for me, nobody ever taught me how to deal with elder parent issues. And I've got a mom that I'm taking care of. And, I had my own cancer battle 2 years ago and I'm cancer free. But the last thing that I was thinking about when they gave me that diagnosis, or they told me that my mother needed to be in an assisted living arena as something to that effect, it wasn't ABC. It wasn't the company it was, how do I get past this yet? I still had to walk into the workplace. And so I got a tender heart when it comes to that, I think. I'm sympathetic and empathetic to it. And I still got to get the job done. But, for me personally and what I'm seeing in the industry, we've just received a series of gifts. Feedback's a gift. And over time, we're trying to chip away at that stoic mentality, chest beaters and all the rest of the things that we are, and start to realize the most important asset, we've said, are our people. So then let's treat them. We do more maintenance on equipment than we do maintenance on the people on our job sites. And they think if they bring something up like that up, they'll be shamed. Oh my gosh, they've got issues. But if we don't acknowledge it, we're doing a disjustice to every man and woman that walks on a job site.
Absolutely.
Which takes me to my next question. Sorry, Sonya. I'm going to hop this up.
I was going to say, I have a question, Zulq. We're going to have to do a little battle today.
Bring it, man. I'm on a fire today. It started.
Do you want me just to referee? I'm good at that too.
No. So
Go ahead.
we're all slowly appreciating and recognize that our single most valuable asset in the industry is a worker.
100%.
We're still pivoting that adjustment. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be listening to this podcast. There's going to be people from all walks of life. There's going to be people from different backgrounds. But more importantly, one of the things that small, medium enterprise contractors haven't been trained for is how to deal with HR, how to create these programs.
Yeah.
Right. And I know ABC is awesome at creating this fraternity of help that you could reach out and you could reach into the big boys that have all these extra resources and humans to do it. But 95% of our industry is small, medium enterprise. Right? They're mom and pop shops that are great tradesmen that have call it the gumption to say, I'm going to start my own company because I think that's a smart idea. Right? And then they go in and they start a company and now they hire people. So what advice can you give them? Because they're the ones that need the help, because they're the ones that employ the most number of people. What can they do to say, hey, these are my steps I got to take? You've been around this.
See, well, it is absolutely true in the sense that the one thing that you just said is the vast majority of contractors in America today are not these massive organizations. It's easy to think of the big generals, or it's easy to think about those self-performing folk. But the vast majority of our contractors today are less than 50 employees, static workshop. If they land a $100 million job, it's just the biggest thing they've ever done. And so this person that you mentioned said I was a great craft professional, and now all of a sudden I want to start my own company. They're also the scheduler. They're also the estimator. They're also the project superintendent. They're also the frontline supervisor. They're also the procurement person. And so with all of that other pressure on, the question that you ask is very real and relevant. And I get it. I understand that. The thing I would say is don't try to do it on your own. Okay. And then secondly, behind that is don't ignore it. Sticking our head in the sand and thinking that my brother-in-law and all the kinfolk that I've got working in this company doesn't have issues. Sticking your head in the sand and saying it doesn't happen in my shop. Number one, it does happen in your shop. And number two, you don't have to do this alone. And the reality of many human resource programs that are put in place, we often think about the wage and hour being the largest component of that, but the backside infrastructure, we've got to take the edge off of employee assistance programs or employee solution programs, because there's a stereotype around them that says, well, if I do this, if I do this, Sonya's got a desk drawer full of everybody that called into the EAP layoff. That's where I'm going to go. And it's just not true, in the grand scheme of things.
Or that they're not going to help me and that it's a waste of my time, right?
The beauty of our industry, to your point, Zulq, is the team that's on the job site, they probably know more than the leader about each other. They're working together every day. And so let's empower those individuals. What you need to do is break those stereotypes. Number one, let me tell you this. Go to CISP, go to preventconstructionsuicide.com, go to the resources, download the toolbox logs. It may feel awkward day one, but by day two, you'll begin to see things transform in your industry, because now you're starting to break apart, that coldness that's sitting there. And I tell you that people want that people really want that. I don't know if that answered your question, but I really feel like it's slow steps, acknowledge it, then don't try to do it on your own. And that was the genesis. That was the beginning of CISP, is giving the contractor the resources that they needed to have this conversation, because not everybody knows how to start. And that's what the beauty of, construction industry suicide prevention is all about.
I guess this is I'm not saying this is a plug, but we're a premier destination for construction industry. However, the pathway model is to say, hey, this is how you're going to start. And I think part of it is recognizing you need to start. And the benefit, you're not going to get the benefit in day one. What is the part that I think most people lose sight of is that they're expecting instantaneous results. This idea of we passed the drive-through society mentality. We're now, order in. And they're assuming that if I dial it, it's going to show up and it's going to take care of it and it's going to feed me. That's not how this is going to work for the industry. You need to put in a little bit of effort. And then once you put in the effort, you're going to put in a little bit more effort. And then slowly you're going to start to see a return. And I think the challenge at a lot of small, medium enterprises, because I had a small, medium enterprise. I was fortunate that my person that was in HR was also my partner, and she knew what it took to give people mental health. So we checked in with our people, right? We had events so we knew what their personal lives were about. Do it within your company, because there's a lot of companies that just say, hey, listen, you just got to start a little bit. The minute you give it enough gas, it'll start rolling by itself. And the I assure you that.
You know, there are people that have really knocked this out of the ballpark in small, medium, and large contractors. And, you know, this is one of those things. It's like safety in the world of our environment, of keeping workers safe. That is not proprietary. In other words, if I have a widget, a gadget, a process that will help you reduce the probability of someone getting injured on a job site, share it with the world. Okay. And so again, this is that space or place. And it's a leadership commitment to make sure, and I'll go back to Ronald Reagan, where he said, if not us, who? And if not now, when? And so the reality of this is, when you asked the question, in 2018 at Apex Force, man, it was crazy. And we said, we got to do something. And here we are this many years later, 6, 7, 8 years later, and we've got something there that contractors could dive into, and it doesn't overwhelm them, but it's commitment to take the step first and then trust the system.
So I would venture to say that most people that are doing this, small, medium, and large, if they're doing it for the right reasons, they're willing to share that. And we see that. We see that every day. But there is a Gregism that I love, that I say all the time. It is written on my whiteboard. It is, if you tune into any podcast that I'm on, I talk about it a lot, because it, Greg, has been the thing that has allowed me to stay grounded in the conversation that we have. And that is your mission monument theory.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wish I knew where I really picked that up on, but a wise person once told me that the moment the mission,
no, it wasn't.
The moment a mission becomes a monument, you spend more time on the maintenance of the monument than you lose sight of the mission. And I work in Washington, D.C., where there's a monument to just about anybody. And the reality is, the maintenance and upkeep on the Washington Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, even the White House, the Capitol, I mean, those things, it just consumes and overshadows the exact mission that we're there to do. And I know fundamentally, the words may change over time, but the end-all mission of CIASP in the beginning, and it's still, I'm sure, in places today, is to help save lives.
100%.
And so the reality is, for me, it is a construction-specific issue, and we've got to look at it through the lens of construction, because we're a little bit of a different bird out there. But we're the most significant bird there in the cage, because you can't do anything in America without somebody in construction doing something first, affiliated or otherwise. Yeah. You can be an architect, an engineer, you can be a CPA, you can be an accountant, you can be a lawyer, but eventually it's going to land on a craft worker doing something. And so this nobility of being in the trades, we need to continue to promote that, because we are a career. We're not a job. This is the big thing. What that statement to me means is, the moment that we take our eyes off of the mission and begin thinking about how to make the monument shiny, it's going to take a whole lot of people to polish and paint, and not enough people to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I use it a lot, I really do. I think Zulq has heard me when we have gotten off on a tangent at times, it allows us to come back to it. But for me, it really allows us to say that this is about the people. It's about the difference. It's not about the accolade or the shiny thing that comes from it. And it also allows us to say, like, we are going to engage or we're not going to engage in certain things that are happening, so that we can kind of continue to do the right things as much as possible.
I gave my parting speech in June to the association when we were together in DC, and I made this statement. I think it was Mark Twain who said, if you find something you love to do and you do it every day, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's right.
And I haven't worked in 47 years, but I've done some really cool things. And at the end of the day, this is one of those things that you've got enough people that love what we're trying to accomplish in our industry. And if you just let them continue, and it sounds squirrely and kumbaya, but man, love is, it's just loving the people and letting them do what people want to do. You know, protecting the people from harm when that harm could interfere in their life. And because of this, the reality is the ripple effect of the suicide just goes out and it's got all kinds of tentacles.
Huge.
And I can't tell you on a chaplaincy role the specifics, but you know, less than 3 or 4 weeks ago, I dealt with a young person that had lost a friend that was going through a training program with them at one of our chapters. And the truth of the matter was that student was impacted, but so was every other student there. So was the instructor that said, I missed it, and they're beating themselves up. And so what CISP does is breaks down those barriers for us to begin to have a conversation about something that's real and it's not squishy. It's going to feel it. I can't say enough about that. The first time you do a toolbox talk about suicide or mental health, it's going to be awkward as heck. But at the end of the day, you'll be surprised what you get out of it. And I've done this in a trench in New York City with some of the most hardcore iron workers I've ever met in my entire life. And I've had a toolbox talk with them about suicide prevention and mental health. And I've had those guys walk up to me afterward to say, I got a son that's dealing with that, or I've got a daughter that's, my wife is. And, you know, now they just feel like you just shattered that whole cloud, if you will. The veil has been ripped. It says, here, you can talk about it. It's okay. But to your point, I want to go back to it. It isn't going to happen just because you read one toolbox talk, right?
No, it's
the culture got to be there to support that. And I can't say enough about that. You know, it's just really strange when you begin to think about, let's just put another rule out there. We've got a rule, everybody's got to do the toolbox talks on suicide prevention. Okay, but what is the leader pushing? Are they just want to check a box and say I did? Or they really want to change the culture of the organization?
Yeah. So this work is hard. I mean, the three of us have talked many times over the last few months about losses that we've experienced. As hard as we try, that's why we teach postvention.
Yeah.
But what would you say then, you know, setting that aside, because the point is to save lives and to touch people. What is your favorite moment from this mission?
Oh, wow.
Me.
Yeah. Sonya is probably one of the best hires that I ever had anything to do with.
That was him that said that. That wasn't
I know. I was doing that on purpose. Yeah. And
He didn't hire me.
I wasn't really involved. I did hear it, but the point, I just think the most exciting thing was having you put in place, because we became a thing. We became an it. It wasn't just a bunch of people spitballing what ifs. It's all of a sudden we've got somebody sitting there. And to me, I look back at all of it. I made some incredible friends. I've spoke at some incredible events. I've had more people say it's the right thing. But all of that set on the shelf, just set it over there and say, yes, the best thing that I think that I look back at it, and I'm not blowing smoke. I'm just simply saying that when you came on board, when we decided to put you in that slot and we were going to take a gamble, and we said, we can afford a human being to change their entire life and take a gamble on us. It's a thing. It's a real thing. And so the mission was, well, we need to do more of this. We need to do more of that. Well, okay, a bunch of volunteers can do a lot of things, but somebody's got to be sitting there driving the stagecoach. And putting you in that place, to me, one of the best things that's ever happened along this journey of mission to me is that means you can never quit. But the reality is that, to me, that's what it's all about. You know, the other thing that's most exciting, and I say this just because of the industry and the way there seems to be a split, that we've kept it labor neutral. That it is not about merit shop contractors and labor unions or PLAs. It's about the people doing the work. I don't care what color Kool-Aid you drink. I don't really give a heck about your secret handshake. I'm talking about the people that are working for you, not your business proposition. And so being able to keep that like that, where we were able to sit down. And then the last one, if I had to say 3, was getting you before the Department of Labor and OSHA and radically transforming the way OSHA, the federal government, looks at suicide prevention.
The moving object on the planet.
Do what?
The slowest moving object on the planet.
100%. But I'm telling you, we made more progress in 1 year there under Sonya's leadership, talking to those people there. You were part of some of the videos they were putting together. And all of a sudden you go out to the website and it's a thing.
We're part of the OSHA Alliance now.
And so to me, that's the big three. I don't need to do any more. You know, I've seen what we've got: capable, competent help, leadership. We've got capable, competent mission. We keep our eyeballs on the dashboard, you know, and then we've got a volunteer group that have passion about it.
We do.
And so as long as we keep those three things in spaces and places, but I say it's, you know, we're a thing, and whatever that, however we got there, that brings me a lot of joy, you know.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So Greg, we are coming to the close of almost 30 minutes. That went so fast.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we like to ask everyone who's on our podcast is, what would your word of the year be? So we all chose words last year for 2025. Zulq has kept his word. I have changed mine. What would your word of the year be for 2026? And I'll share mine. So while you think, if that helps, my word is community. Last year it was intentionality, and that I was very intentional with what we did and how we did it. And this year it is building a stronger community where we are really locking arms with other organizations to say that we're stronger together.
Yeah. I've been on a journey for the last year, personally. The word that I'm going to say could be used in a lot of different applications, but it's freedom. It's easy to get caught up in the political rhetoric associated with that word. But I want the freedom of a worker to say, I'm not okay. I want the freedom for someone to walk up to a worker and say, what's going on? I want the freedom of people to say, how can I help you? And again, I understood it from a patriotic standpoint, and all the cliches around you had the freedom to see something, say something. The rebrand on that is, I want that workforce to be free to talk about these things, for supervisors to be confident in a conversation about it. For us, like you said, Zulq, to get that, if you're lucky enough to have a human resources professional, they're putting the product out there for people to consume, have the freedom to talk about this at every level in an organization. Because I believe in my heart of hearts, you guys are now, I'm still affiliated loosely or whatever, but the truth.
No. You're not running yet. Relax.
That's it.
Go down there, cowboy.
But to me, and I know we got to shut up here, but the truth is, people are going to be watching the mission. And when they see the results of the mission, not how big the monument is, okay? When they see that things are starting to happen in the mission, you are leading tip of spear for every other organization out there that is pushing anything out there. So I think you're cutting edge. And we've operated with freedom over since 2018. It has been just the wild, wild west for us to do what we had to do. There was a freedom in that. Yeah. Now we've got to push that freedom out to our workplace, push that freedom out to our supervisors, push that freedom out to our employees. So my word in this year, because I personally have been affected by that, but if I could say that's the 1 year that wraps up for Greg, freedom to do something about it now.
Yes.
Love it.
Share your mission. This will wrap this up perfectly.
I'm still living on the world of gratefulness. Greg, we all climb mountains and we drop through valleys and we have to swim through oceans at different periods of time. Some of them are great moments and some of them are not so happy moments, right? But at the end of it all, I wake up with the idea of gratefulness. I'm grateful that I'm actually got an opportunity to serve with the board. Yeah. I got to meet you a number of years ago, and we're going to stay friends even though you're going to retire. I can't wait for you to sail your boat up to Toronto. I think it'd be awesome. I'll meet you in the Hudson River. How's that? Okay, we can just party it up there. But I exercise gratefulness because you know what? There's far worse places to be on the planet. 100%. There's far worse things to have to deal with. And every day I wake up and I said, well, how did I end up in construction with a degree in engineering? I love every bit of it. And I'm hoping that all the tradesmen and everyone that's listening to the podcast goes, you know what? We're awesome industry. We're awesome people. We do some amazing things. And while we shouldn't polish the monuments, the reality is we build those monuments so everyone else can come and appreciate.
100%.
So build your workers up. You know what? Be grateful for everyone that you got working for you, because honestly, if you didn't have them, you'd be doing it yourself. So just be grateful you have them.
Or somebody else would be doing it and you wouldn't have to.
Right.
You wouldn't have them. And, listen, you want a successful business? Take care of your workers. Real simple. Don't worry about the tools. They'll take care of themselves. They'll find, you can replace them. Can't replace workers, considering we're what, 500,000 short?
Well, Greg, thank you for joining us today. Our community is grateful for the freedom that you've brought to this conversation and for joining us today. So, and happy retirement.
Oh, no. We're bringing you back, buddy. We're bringing you back.
Listen, I'm like that lint ball you can't get off your sweater, right? You're like, dude, I've been plucking at that thing and it just seems it doesn't go away. I'll be around. And all my social network will know where I'm at. But in today, it's time for me to be free to give back to my family.
100%.
Because they have sacrificed so much for me to do.
Greg,
ever work a day in my life.
On behalf of the industry, thank you for everything you've done. This is my squishy moment. It's been a pleasure to have you as part of our world and our universe in construction. You will be missed, my friend. However, I have a feeling you're not going to be running that far. These people that you've been running from that have been chasing you are going to be pushing you out soon. So on that note,
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.